say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please join me in prayer. Almighty and loving God, sanctuary for our soul and the true source of our strength, we ask your blessings on this ceremony today as we honor Specialist Ross A. McGinnis, whose courageous actions on December the 4th, 2006 best represents the warrior ethos of our Army strong soldiers. Through Ross's heroic actions, you allowed us to catch a glimpse at the heart of an American soldier, a mature young man whose priorities were in order, a military professional who pursued the art of soldiering with confidence and excellence, a courageous patriot who persevered and pressed on in the face of imminent danger, and a faithful friend whose love for his fellow soldiers exceeded that of his own life. Lord, surely Ross found safety and security in your strong arms, even as he was leaping to save the lives of his 4 friends. We ask your richest blessings upon the Ross family, the McGinnis family. Encourage, comfort, and strengthen his parents, Tom and Romaine, his sisters Becky and Katie, as we render our nation's highest honors to their loved one. And bless Ross's fellow soldiers, many who join us today as a result of Ross's selfless act of service. Give them the grace and strength to live in such a way that honors Ross' memory. And may we, and all who hear of Ross's heroic actions, never cease to give thanks and praise for our many service members standing in harm's way this day, protecting, supporting, and defending our great nation. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, General Richard Cody.
Secretary England, Secretary Guerin, Secretary Chu, General Sullivan, General Foley, Barney Barnum, Sergeant Major of the Army Ken Preston, distinguished guests, family members, friends, soldiers, a lot of great members of the Big Red One here today, and especially the family of Private First Class Ross McGinnis, including his father Tom, mother Romaine, sisters Becky and Katie, and his brothers from Charlie Company, the Rock of the 126 Blue Spaders. Welcome and thank you very much for attending this great ceremony today. We gathered to celebrate the life and courageous service of Private First Class Ross McGinnis, an American soldier whose selfless act of heroism and sacrifice engenders in each of us the deepest feeling of respect, gratitude, and love. Long before that day in Army, Ross proved his courage on his 17th birthday when he volunteered, on the very first day he was eligible, to join the United States Army that was at war and to defend his family and his country. That act of selfless service speaks volumes about Ross and about his family who raised him. Over 300 million Americans enjoy freedom and prosperity today because a precious few like Ross McGinnis are willing to stand up and say, "America, in your time of need, send me." Though soldiers come from diverse backgrounds, they are united by shared Army values and the warrior ethos instilled during basic training, the ethos that Ross learned and lived by. I will always place the mission first. I will never quit. I'll never accept defeat. And I'll never leave a fallen comrade. After basic training, Ross joined a company of men in 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry, who felt exactly the same way. His battalion commander, then Lieutenant Colonel Eric Schacht, his company commander, then Captain Mike Baca, and his platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Cedric Thomas, trained the Blue Spaders to fight as a team under the toughest of conditions. They built trust, soldier to soldier, leader to lead, unit to unit. The kind of trust that turns strangers into brothers. The kind of trust that leaves no doubt that when your fellow soldiers would risk their lives to save yours, just as you would do the same for them. The crucible of combat only strengthened this powerful bond between brothers in great units like 1st Platoon, Charlie Company, 126 Infantry. It was no accident this battalion that participated in the Normandy invasion was assigned one of the toughest sectors in Baghdad. During the bitter sectarian fighting that erupted after al-Qaeda bombed the Samarra Mosque, Ross McGinnis and his soldiers faced insurgents' bombs and sniper fire almost every day in Armia. But Ross and the Blue Spaders were determined to accomplish their mission because they knew we must defeat al-Qaeda in Iraq to keep not only our country safe, but to provide the Iraqis a safe and secure environment so they could rebuild their country. On December 4th, 1st Platoon was conducting a combat patrol in downtown Ahmadiyya to reduce the level of sectarian violence and help bring security to that neighborhood. Private First Class McGinnis was in the turret of the last up-armored Humvee in that convoy, manning the M2 50 caliber machine gun to protect the combat patrol from enemy attacks. Suddenly, an insurgent from a nearby rooftop threw a grenade that landed inside their Humvee. Ross quickly yelled "grenade" on the vehicle's intercom system to alert the 4 other soldiers in that Humvee. His platoon sergeant, the vehicle commander, yelled "where?" The crew did not know where the grenade had landed and did not fully appreciate the danger they were in. Ross saw the grenade and saw that it had come down to rest near the radio in the center of the vehicle. He had to make a life or death split decision. All that duty required was that Ross warn the crew and then attempt to escape through the gunner's hatch to safety. But love for his fellow brothers required more. He yelled, "The grenade is in the truck," and immediately covered the grenade with his body to protect his fellow soldiers from the blast. Knowing full well the grenade would kill him, Ross gave his life so that his 4 brothers would live. There's no greater act of personal courage, loyalty, or selfless service than this. As a result of his quick reflexes and heroic measures, Sergeant First Class Cedric Thomas, Staff Sergeant Ian Newland, Sergeant Lyle Bueller, and Specialist Sean Lawson survived certain death inside that vehicle. To you 4 men, I know you appreciate what Ross did, and that the best way for you to thank him is to continue to be the great soldiers and to live your life as American citizens worthy of Ross's service and sacrifice. He would want you to live your life to the fullest with gratitude, but without guilt. As one of his crew members wrote, and I quote, "By all means, I should have died that day. There isn't a single day or hour that goes by that I don't take in everything. The smell of my daughter's hair, the smile of my son gives me out of nowhere, the soft touch of my wife's hand just driving my car. Normally those things people might take for granted. I'm able to appreciate and have these things all over again every day, every hour, because of what Ross did," end quote. One cannot express the gift Ross gave to you and to all of us any better. Ross McGinnis was buried where valor rests in Arlington National Cemetery with his fellow Blue Spaders from World War II, Vietnam, and Iraq. But he lives in our hearts and in our memories as a guardian angel sent to keep us safe, who has got your back no matter what. Ross will never forget you. Though you spent only 19 years here with us, you lived your life to the fullest as a great son, as a great brother, a courageous soldier, and a comrade in arms. The United States Army and this nation will honor your service and sacrifice for as long as the American Republic endures. Private First Class McGinnis, I honor you today and salute you. Well done, soldier.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of the Army, the Honorable Pete Guerin.
General Cody recognized our many distinguished guests who are with us today. I'd like once again to welcome Tom and Romaine, Becky, and Katie. You truly honor us with your presence. I know a day like this it's a mix of emotions for all of you. But thank you for being with us and letting us pay respect and honor to your brother and to your son. General Foley and Barney Barnum, Medal of Honor winners, you certainly honor us with your presence. Thank you for being here. In James Michener's classic book about the Korean War, The Bridges at Toko-ri, he writes of an officer waiting through the night for the return of planes to a carrier as dawn is coming. And he asks, where do we find such men? Well, we find them where we've always found them. They're the product of the freest society man has ever known. They make a commitment to the military, and they make it freely because of the birthright we share as Americans. Where do we find them today? Well, they find us. People like Ross McGinnis, with Our Nation at War, come from a small town and step up and say to our nation at war, here am I. I'm ready to defend freedom. Today we stop and remember an extraordinary young man. And it's my privilege today to reflect on Ross's life with his family. And Ross has seen through the eyes of those he loved and shared his life with. One of his teachers, Libby Hansford, called him a regular guy who does exceptional things. He loved cars, loved all kinds of music. He worked at McDonald's to earn enough money to buy himself a Ford T-Bird. His sisters told me today that in order to get them to play with him, he would even play Barbies. And as President Bush noted yesterday, schoolwork was not his favorite task. He grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. Went to St. Paul's Lutheran Church in his hometown. He loved to make people laugh, his fellow soldiers in the barracks, or his sisters, Katie and Becky, with his impressions of teachers, friends. I'm told he did a mean Apu from The Simpsons. When you look at Ross's life, you wonder at what point could we spot the ingredient that would lead him to be the hero that we honor today. As his teacher said, he was a regular guy, did the normal things that a boy does growing up. The first sign of the kind of man he would be is look at his family, the family that was devoted to him, two sisters that helped raise him, a mom and dad that were devoted to him, lived the kind of values that Ross lived. And then he showed a strong indicator. Our nation was at war. And he volunteered in the middle of that war, knowing full well what that duty was going to entail. Specialist Chris Manson, a friend who described Ross as more like a brother, said that Ross was the kind of guy who made the best out of any situation, no matter what. He was always the life of the party. Another soldier said Ross would do anything for anybody. He was born on June 14th. He shared the birthday with the United States Army. Tom said that Ross was proud of that fact, that his birthday was the same as the Army's, and proud that during basic training at Fort Benning, he could keep going when nobody else could. He carried a 15-pound squad automatic weapon, while most of his fellow recruits carried 8-pound M16s. When the drill sergeants would have the recruits hold their weapons over their heads during conditioning drills until ordered to lower them, Ross would always hang on longer than anybody else, even though his weapon weighed twice as much as his fellow recruits. His dad said basic training sculpted him into a man. He fit in well with the Army's discipline. a rambunctious young man who found a second home in the discipline and structure of the Army. He bragged to his friend Chris Manson, who was an artilleryman, that as an infantryman, he was the force of the Army. But the rigors of basic training and the discipline of the Army didn't diminish Ross's sense of humor. The soldiers in Ross's platoon relied on his sense of humor to lighten things up. Whenever he left the room laughing. Katie called him a crazy little brother with constant energy, like a puppy. No matter how many times you threw the toy, the puppy would always bring it back. But in a transcendent instant, Ross performed an extraordinary act. The crazy little brother who loved to make people laugh, made a selfless decision. He decided that the lives of his friends were more important than his own. Staff Sergeant Newland was wounded in the attack that took Ross's life. He and the 3 other soldiers were saved that day by Ross's selflessness. Not only did he save Staff Sergeant Newland's life, his life was transformed. He's told us that because of what Ross did, he gave me back my wife and my kids. Words cannot express the debt all of us owe, not just those 4, but all of us in this land of the free. And our duty to Ross, and to the memory of Ross, and our duty to his family, is for all of us to live lives worthy of his sacrifice. Ross gave his life so that others might live. Greater love hath no man that he lay down his life for his friends. Romaine, Tom, Becky, Katie, thank you all for honoring us with your presence. And thank you for sharing your son and your brother with our Army. His memory will live in this Army forever. Our next speaker today is the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Gordon England. President Bush has turned to Gordon England multiple times for some of the toughest jobs in our government in this time of war. He previously served as the 72nd and 73rd Secretary of the Navy and as the first Deputy Secretary of the Department of Homeland Defense. He now serves as the 29th Deputy Secretary of Defense. He serves our nation with great distinction. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Gordon England.
Pete, thanks for your very, very nice words, and General Cody, thank you also. To the family of PSC Ross McGinnis, it was a pleasure welcome. It was a pleasure to spend some time with you in the office and just walking down together, so we got to know each other, and to see you yesterday at the ceremony. You know we are all extraordinarily proud of Ross, and I know that he would be extraordinarily proud of each of you. And I thank you for raising such a magnificent young man and for the immense sacrifice you have made as a family for our nation. Welcome also to Ross's relatives and friends who have traveled so far to be with us. Welcome also to Ross's brothers in arms who have joined us, as well as all the other distinguished guests and the Medal of Honor recipients with us this afternoon. I appreciate General Cody's account of Ross McGinnis's heroism and service as an American warrior. I also thank my good friend, Secretary Pete Guerin, for his eloquent description of Ross himself, the person you knew and loved so much. I'd like to add to their sentiments by talking briefly about the significance of the Medal of Honor and how it reflects the very best qualities of the men and women who wear the cloth of our nation. For over 230 years, the freedoms and liberties we hold most sacred in this country have been earned by our fellow citizens. From the Minutemen at Bunker Hill to our warriors in Iraq and Afghanistan, our history is filled with stories of individuals sacrificing their own lives to secure for us the profound gift of peace and freedom. On this very day, June 3rd, 64 years ago, tens of thousands of young American soldiers and our allies embarked on ships in the English Channel, prepared to land at Normandy on D-Day, June the 6th. Their courage would eventually liberate millions from the dominance of Hitler's Nazi regime and bring freedom to Europe. Their courage decisively changed the course of history. And on that single day at Normandy, thousands of Americans were killed, wounded, and were missing in action. 4 would earn the Medal of Honor. This generation of heroes continues to demonstrate that same spirit and selfless sense of duty. They know that freedom is not an inalienable right. Rather, as President Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We don't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. As a nation, we are willing to sacrifice our blood and treasure for our founding belief, freedom. America's fundamental value is freedom for our citizens and for other people around the world. And in so doing, we better secure our own freedoms. As a nation, we also honor all those who serve, and especially our fallen heroes. Ross was securing those very freedoms for Americans and for the people of Iraq when he made the ultimate sacrifice. Now, no serviceman or woman goes to war intending to make the ultimate sacrifice. In fact, every soldier who goes into combat expects to come home. And while warfighters do die in combat, they don't choose to do so. But there are rare heroes who consciously make the decision to do an extraordinary thing, if need be, to sacrifice their lives for others. And that's the reason we gather here today, to stand in awe of their choice and to pay tribute to their sacrifice. These heroes are among the recipients of the Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor is indeed an exceptional distinction, the greatest tribute a grateful nation can bestow on one of its own. Since the first presentation of the Medal of Honor on March 25, 1863, more than 39 million men and women have answered the call to serve, but less than 3,500 Medals of Honor have been awarded. Of the 26 million who served during World War II, less than 500 received the Medal of Honor. It is a most jealously guarded distinction because it sets the highest standard. The acts of bravery shown by the very select group of Medal of Honor recipients reflect the uncommon valor, courage, and ultimate commitment to their comrades in arms. I believe a nation is distinguished by what it believes, by what it values, by whom it honors, and to what it aspires to be. The elite circle, the Medal of Honor recipients, are our nation's most revered heroes. And every time a name is added, that individual story enriches the significance of this award. The Medal of Honor is awarded in the name of Congress and presented by the President of the United States. But in truth, it is bestowed by the American people on our best and bravest. Those who receive it are forever national treasures. Yesterday at the White House, the Commander-in-Chief, President Bush, bestowed the Medal of Honor on Private First Class Ross McGinnis. And today we honor his name and his legacy of heroism here at the Pentagon. Now, these have been remarkable days as we appropriately honor Ross and his family for their service and sacrifices on behalf of a grateful nation. And while this is a bittersweet occasion, we can all find comfort in recognizing the astonishing gift given to us by Ross and by generations before him. Now, tomorrow will bring another remarkable day for the McGinnis family, for everyone here, everyone in Washington. Tomorrow will be another remarkable day in Knox, Pennsylvania, Ross's hometown, and in Meadville, his birthplace. And it will be another remarkable day in every city and village and town throughout this great nation, because tomorrow morning, everyone in America will wake up as a free people. And this is not by accident. It's not by chance. It's because great Americans, like Ross McGinnis, have paid the high price of freedom on our behalf. That's why we stand in awe again, because PFC Ross McGinnis voluntarily gave his life for his comrades in arms and paid the ultimate sacrifice so that others could awaken each morning as free people. Ross McGinnis, his name, his actions are now forever immortalized in the nation's consciousness. He is part of our national fabric, a reflection of American values. May God bless Ross McGinnis. May God especially bless his family, all of you. May God bless all who wear the cloth of our nation. And may God continue to bless the United States of America.
At this time, Secretary Guerin, General Cody, and Mr. and Mrs. McGinnis will join Secretary England on stage to unveil the Medal of Honor photograph and citation.
Attention orders.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Private First Class Ross A. McGinnis, United States Army. Private First Class Ross McGinnis distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving as an M2 50 caliber machine gunner, 1st Platoon, Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry Regiment, in connection with combat operations against an armed enemy in Adamiyah, northeast Baghdad, Iraq, on 4 December 2006. That afternoon, his platoon was conducting combat control operations in an effort to reduce and control sectarian violence in the area. While Private McGinnis was manning the M2 50 caliber machine gun, a fragmentation grenade thrown by an insurgent fell through the gunner's hatch into his vehicle. Reacting quickly, he yelled "grenade," allowing all 4 members of his crew to prepare for the grenade's blast. Then, rather than leaping from the gunner's hatch to safety, Private McGinnis made the courageous decision to protect his crew. In a selfless act of bravery in which he was mortally wounded, Private McGinnis covered the live grenade, pinning it between his body and the vehicle and absorbing most of the explosion. Private McGinnis's gallant action directly saved 4 men from certain serious injury or death. Private First Class McGinnis's extraordinary heroism and selflessness at the cost of his own life, above and beyond the call of duty, are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The War on Terrorism plaque will now be unveiled, inducting the honoree into the Hall of Heroes. Thank you, Secretary Guerin and General Cody. On 23 October 2002, Public Law 107-248, Section 8143, established the Medal of Honor flag to recognize service members who have distinguished themselves by gallantry in action above and beyond the call of duty. The Medal of Honor flag commemorates the sacrifice and blood shed for our freedoms and gives emphasis to the Medal of Honor being the highest award for valor by an individual serving in the armed forces of the United States. The light blue color with gold fringe bearing 13 white stars are adopted from the Medal of Honor ribbon. At this time, the Deputy Secretary of Defense will present the Medal of Honor flag to Mr. and Mrs. McGinnis. Thank you, Secretary England and Mrs. McGinnis. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor at this time to introduce Mr. Thomas McGinnis.
Thank you. I'm not going to remember all these names that everybody's been listing off today, but I sure do appreciate the welcome that we've been given. We've been made to feel very special in the last couple of days, both at the White House and here at the Pentagon. All I have is are a few thoughts, a few simple thoughts from a simple man, hopefully not simple-minded thoughts. Something that was said just a few minutes ago made me think. When it was said that Ross gave these 4 men a gift, and that's what it was. But they can't be expected to live the rest of their lives living up to something or paying back something. It can't be carried as a debt. A debt is something you can repay. A gift is something for you to enjoy. So live your lives, enjoy your lives, because it was a gift. Ross. Before I got here, I got a little nervous. Everybody gets butterflies before something like this, but I think I've given a new definition to butterfly effect. So, Ross is the reason that we're here. And the reason that Ross is not here is because his Army buddies were more important than life itself. And I want you to know that we appreciate all the memorials, the gifts, the special attention that we've been given since Ross died. It has helped enormously with our grief process. But I feel that there's somebody else out there that's much more important than Romaine and I. And that's the troops that are still active. Most of these men and women are very young. They're a long ways from home. They're afraid sometimes of the things that they're going to be called on to do. And so they need our support. They need to know that what they're doing is appreciated by the people back home. They all experience homesickness. They miss the comforts that they've had, that they've given up to do what they have to do. So I think it's important that we show them our appreciation by sending them gifts, letters, and things like that would remind them that they are appreciated and they will be welcome when they come home. We've had the support of hundreds and hundreds of people, family, friends, and strangers that have helped us deal with what we've had to go through. And this is a good thing. But our troops when they get home also need our support. They put their lives in the line for us, sometimes for 4 years, sometimes for 2 years, sometimes for 20 years. And when they get home, they also need our support. And many of these people were very young when they left home. They put aside their education and went into the service, because it's the young people that make up the active Army, the ones that really do the fighting for us. So we owe them an ability to be able to return home and become a productive part of their society. They need to be able to continue their education where they left off. And so I say thank you to the Senate and the House who have helped to pass the new GI Bill. Now, this GI Bill only needs the signature of the President of the United States to become law. And I think it's time that George Bush can sign this bill and make it law to show his appreciation for the support that his loyal youth have given him. I know there is another GI Bill out there that may be better, that is in the works, but it's not passed by the House and the Senate. It doesn't have bipartisan support. And I can say this, as my father has often said to me before, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. No pun intended. So I thank you for all the fine treatment that you've given us. And I wish all the troops well. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please remain standing and join in the singing of the Army song. The words to the Army song may be found on the back of your program.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the Army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the Army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the Army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong, for wherever we go, you always know that the Army goes rolling along.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are invited to congratulate Mr. and Mrs. McGinnis in the receiving line outside of the conference room. They also invite you to join them for a reception immediately following. This concludes today's ceremony. Thank you. Army Strong.